Hi, I'm Jesper Petersen from KDAP. You just joined perhaps the series on programming with Qt and QML. If not, in the previous video you saw how we could create our own elements simply by putting some elements into a file, name that file something like lineedit.qml, capital first letter, and we added property to that. There's two things that we can do in addition. Those two things is that we can add methods on our new elements and we can add signals to that new element. At the end of this video, I hopefully have convinced you that both is not that terrible good idea, but if we skip this video entirely, you would learn it from YouTube or Stack Overflow or whatever, and then you might not come to the same realization before way in. Let's see how we do it. So first of all, adding a method is super simple. At the top of the element, we'll just create a function. So function clear, whatever here. Now I can do my element dot clear. So there is really not more to say about that. It needs to be at the top of the element, but besides, there's not more. Adding signals, on the other hand, we do that also on the top of the element. There I'll be creating my signal. I'll use the keyword signal, so signal clicked, that's it. Now I have a clicked signal in my element, or signal checked, bool check value. Now I have a checked signal that brings out a boolean. Let me show you the code here. That will hopefully make you realize why signals is not necessarily all that good an idea. So let's run it first. I got two checkboxes. Both of them look exactly the same. They almost is the same identical implementation, but one is using signal, the other is declarative. Click the checkbox. The surrounding of that checkbox changes color to red. Same thing down here. Main.qml looks like this. I got this rectangle around, I got the item around the whole thing with a given size. I got a rectangle, that's my first checkbox here. The checkbox has unchecked, check value, question mark, parent.color red, otherwise parent.color light blue. So the parent's color, that's a rectangle's color, will either be red or light blue depending on whether the checkbox is checked, and it knows by a signal being emitted. Let's look at the checkbox here. This is, as you see up here, checkbox.qml. So it's in the file checkbox.qml. It's an item at the topmost level. It got an image, it got a text. And again, if I can run this example. You can see the image, that is this check mark. That's just an image that we have there. And then the text. The image is anchored as usual. The source is either checked.svg or unchecked.svg, depending on whether my toggle area __ check is true or false. And my toggle area, that's the mouse area down here. It has a private property. So property bool __ checked, that is false. And whenever the checkbox or the mouse area is emitting its clicked signal, it will toggle this __ checked. See, I don't like this. There's the reason I don't like it is twofold. First of all, I go back here. My code now, wherever I look at the color of this rectangle, what is the color? Oh, come on, Jesper, are you stupid or something? The color is obviously, let me just check my screen, light blue, right? Well, it's light blue, unless that the checked values checked function got it, or the checkbox's checked signal got emitted, then it will turn red. But it's not very declarative that I need to go and read it in two different places. The other problem is even worse. Had I had a time machine, I would of course not do any of the major things that you do if you had a time machine, because who knows what would happen in history if we did that. But if I had a time machine, I would make a small adjustment to the history. I would go back and I would invite the guy from Nokia that invented the signals inside QML. I would invite him out for a beer and I would convince him to change the syntax just slightly. And here's the problem. Check value. Okay, let me see. Check value. That must be a property that I have somewhere. Check value, check value, check value. No. Oh yeah, I remember. It doesn't matter where in the file things are, so let me just look down. Check value, check value, check value. Fortunately, this file is only 48 lines long. Imagine it was 200 lines long. It would be a lot of looking for that check value. But the check value actually comes out as one of the parameters with the signal. So if we go back to the checkbox, you'll see here my checkbox has signal checked bool check value. And it's this name, it's a check value name that we have there that dictates that I'm all of a sudden I have access to a variable over in my JavaScript code here that was called check value. Just imagine that I misspelled this check value. I likely had written it like this, check value. I'm sure that's French or something. It would hit all the clients of this checkbox. Let me run it again. Starting up here, and my checkbox doesn't work anymore. Fortunate for you, I was running this in KubeCreator, so I could see here reference error, check value is not defined. No, it's not defined because it's now called check value, and we have that. Fix that spelling error here and run it. No, I did not fix it. I see. Difficult. EU. There we are. And now when I run it again, it works. So had I had that time machine I was talking about, I would have gone back and say, hey, can we please modify the syntax to look something like this? I know, and it's likely going to trigger your OCD or something that we all of a sudden have a syntax that is not just property : value, but hey, you're a pretty clever guy, you can definitely fix that. Unfortunately, I don't have that time machine, so you have to live with this. I spent quite a bit of time. I even went out of my way to invent a stupid time machine, but that's just to give your brain focus on this issue because it will hit you one time or the other. Okay, let's see how I would like it to look. If we look further down, I got another rectangle here. Checkbox better, the name indicate. Here I have a property bool checked at the top of my element here, and my mouse area is clicked is simply toggling this check property. And now what does the client look like? It says, let me just find the code here, rectangle, the color is checkbox better.checked, then it's either red or it's light blue. I know it can be slightly controversial here, but please, can you just taste this a bit? Which one do you think is more easy to maintain? The one that says color : checkbox better.checked, question mark, well, you can read the line. This line here, or this line up here where first the color is light blue and then I need to go down there and read the light blue. My money is on that, the second version, the one where I'm programming as the programming language was intended, namely declarative. My money is on that is the one that is easier to maintain. Okay, that's it for this video here. In the next video, we're gonna look on one of the really difficult issues with your own component, namely what size should they have and how does that work together with their surroundings. We're gonna talk much more about that implicit width and implicit height that we already saw a bit in one of the previous videos. So stay tuned, and until then, have a great day.